Can everybody see that all right?
Yep.
Cool. Nancy asked me to kind of put together a little program together. There's who are the Friends? And that kind of took me back a little bit like, well, really, who are we? I started with the Friends in 2006. Get this thing to work here. And I got involved with the Friends through a news release that was in the Des Moines Register in 2006. And it basically said, Neal Smith National Wildlife Refuge is looking for a person to analyze historic trapping records to determine mammal population back for a tallgrass prairie. And so I contacted the refuge, spoke to Al Murray, who was Nancy's predecessor by 2 or 3 generations. He said, geez, we haven't had that position for 8 years. Turns out this was an old press release put in the Des Moines Register way back when. And a lesson to the wise, when you have a press release, put a date on it, because if a publication is looking for some information, they might find a spot that's just about the right, that much square inches. You'll find yours and put it in there. So anyway, but then Al said, hey, interested in working in the bookstore. The rest is history. So who are we? First of all, we're a nonprofit 501c3. Sounds pretty easy. I was involved in a 501c3 initiation a couple of years ago with another group. It starts out as a 4-page file form that you fill out for the IRS. Sounds pretty simple, except if there's a lot of the questions are, if yes, please explain. If no, please explain. When I got through putting this application together, that 4-page document turned into an 84-page book.
Wow.
But it takes about 6 months to get it. But then because of the 501c3, we're exempt from taxations. Our vision is pretty simple: to bring together the public and thrive with a wildlife refuge. What I enjoy about the refuge, what really piqued my interest, my great-grandfather, not homesteaded, but moved here in Iowa in 1848, 1849 at the end of the Mexican-American War. He was a soldier. He came, and back in those days, they would say, would you like money or would you like land when you get out of the Army? He took land. He took about 160 acres south of Iowa City. So the land that the Neal Smith is trying to take back to a tallgrass prairie, that's the land he acquired from the federal government in the late 1840s. So our vision is just a partnership, promotes awareness, support, education. Key thing for us, education and appreciation of natural systems. Okay, what types of activities? What do? We support the refuge through financial. We talked about that a little bit. Volunteers, which many of us are, or all of us are. We are a spokesperson both locally and nationally. I did not realize this until I got more involved, but there are many things that the federal employees cannot do, such as lobbying our congressmen and senators in Washington. More than once, I've gone back to Washington, and the National Wildlife Refuge Association will sponsor a group of Friends representatives to go back at the same time, and they kind of give us a checklist of things that really to talk about. In those days, it was Congressman Boswell, Senators Harkin and Grassley. I set appointments up with all 3 of those people and just went through what they kind of the script they gave us. This was also during the Gulf War, and on my own, our main thing we're asking for the federal government was of an additional funding of about $50 million, which is not much. I did some calculations and figured out that $50 million during the Gulf War for the military equates to about 3 hours. I mentioned that to Senator Harkin. He just kind of shook his head. He said, that's all we're talking about? I said, yep, 3 hours for General Schwarzkopf. If he would give you that money, the Fish and Wildlife Service would be fine. We didn't get all that, but we did get part of it. So that's one of the things we do, is take the message back to Washington. Land acquisition. The Friends are involved in land acquisition. We received an anonymous donation, about 10 years ago now, right when I was president of the board, from an estate. It was a total of about $2.5 million. We could not release the name of the estate, but the money was for our use for any purpose we desired. There's a big land farm that came on available for sale. That about six months after we got a notification of the money. It's called the Rothing House Estate, 831 acres. We did not have all the money at that point because they were doling it out over. It took several years to get the money. So we went with the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. They pooled their resources and jointly we bought that 831 acres. The federal government cannot react fast enough to a land sale. So that was what we helped buy it. We're in the still process of getting our money back. They said it's going to take 3 years. Not quite. It's taken a little bit longer than that. But also we do a lot of work with public and other nature organizations and other like-minded groups. Pheasants Forever, yes, groups such as that. Who are we as far as people? You know, probably know almost all of us. Joan Van Gorp, president from Prairie City, myself. I've been on the board since 2006. Daryl is the nature store liaison. Sutu Warming is our volunteer coordinator. She has a lot of work in HR type activity. Sharon, former Exxon, Mobile Exxon, or not Exxon. Yeah. Sharon, what are you? One of those.
I'm retired ExxonMobil.
ExxonMobil, there we go. I never get the word quite right. Jim Johnson has done a lot of work for us, and thank you, Jim. Like publicly, thank you, because we all talked about grants before Jim came on board. We never really did much about it. He's really taken the bull by the horns and really helped generate a lot of funding for the friends that we can use with such things as interns, is a good example, with educational programs for the school kids. Sydney Algren Hunter is biology. Jordan Oster is public relations, and he is with the Iowa, I think it's the Iowa Environmental Council. Is that right? Somewhere.
Yes.
Okay. Rachel is our public relations person. She is a practicing veterinarian. She became interested in the refuge. She was out helping with one of the, I guess they call it, not the roundup, but bison roundup, whatever the new word for it is. She was involved in that. And Amanda, thank you for membership. It's a big responsibility. Scott Giles, Dilgy, excuse me, is our liaison with the refuge. And we have meetings the third Tuesday of every month. Those are open to the public. If any of you would like to attend the meeting, it starts at about 6, and normally it's over by about 7:30, and we never go past 8. Right now, we're still doing a Zoom, but if you'd like to go, once we get them back open, they're at the refuge. Okay, well, types of things we support. Internships. When I first came on the board back in 2006, there was 1 or 2 interns. I think at the peak, we've had 12 to 13 internships that we have supported financially. The federal government cannot hire an intern. We provide stipends to those interns in compensation for working at the refuge. School trips. There's a number of school districts when times are really tough that not have the money to pay for buses, fuel, and the drivers. So we worked. This is one of the first times I got involved with grant writing. Worked with Prairie Meadows, and they provided us a grant to pay for those school trips so we could bring kids out to the refuge. Land acquisition, already talked about that. We've, as needed, since then we've purchased 2 or 3 other pieces of land, and some of those I think were almost owned completely. Others are still jointly owned between us, Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation, and the federal government. Equipment. Equipment needs a surface. The most recent one I can think of recently was a small little thing. It was just a riding lawnmower to help keep the grass up around the property. Spurs and Tails program, the photo contest, signs that Jim already talked about, Pedal the Prairie events, kiosks for our new and maintenance. There's always maintenance. Our vault toilets by the Oak Savannah. Those are all provided by the friends. The Prairie Seed purchases, and even snowshoeing. People give a reason for people to come out and enjoy the refuge. Income, where does it come from? Well, when I first started, income came almost exclusively from income or profits from the bookstore, or the nature store. That is, right now we're selling about $75,000 to $80,000 worth of material. That's retail sales per year. That does nearly come to all of our expenses. A lot of it comes from grants, Jim Johnson's work. We also have investment interest, dividends, and appreciation. That money that we're getting back from the federal government for the land we purchased, like the Rothing House estate, that is going into investments. We have a nest egg now of a little over $1 million, and we're just guarding that. We're getting 8 to 10% interest growth per year. We're just letting it cook. Donations we get from people who come off the street or regular donations, memberships, bequeaths, memorials, and events such as Concert on the Prairie. Those are both fun income, plus also a lot of those are awareness building programs. What do we need? We need support. Event volunteers for like the Concert on the Prairie, Spurs and Tails events, you name it. Seed cleaning, a lot of you are wearing that. Working at the nature store. One other group that we're always looking for is board members. That's why I'm kind of going to give you my last little screen here. If you have any interest, feel free to drop me an email, give me a call, or drop me a letter.